Today we are driving the Fiat 600, which is of course the bigger brother or sister of the Fiat 500, which is a cool little compact city car. And this 600 is bigger in every way and offers a little bit more practicality that way. My name is Peter and today I'm taking you around this Fiat 600 in Aqua Azzurri, or Mediterranean blue, so you will. And right from the get-go we have to of course address the fact that this is a Stellantis product and that this car shares most of its components with the Opel Mokka, the Jeep Avenger, the Peugeot e2008 for example. So there's a lot of components that are the same, the drivetrain is the same, the platform is the same and all that stuff. Is that bad? On the one hand you could say it's all the same and they just put a different body on it. On the other hand, if you're a big brand like Stellantis and you have all these car brands underneath your umbrella, you do have to be efficient with the way you produce cars. So as far as that goes, I'm not mad about it. Especially because Fiat puts a very own face on its car. And that's evident here on the front. Obviously there is a big 600 here on the front, so you don't forget. More on that later as well. But this is all very nice and soft and almost feminine, I'd say. And I think the design team has done a good job in making a good looking car that fits the Fiat family line. We got some nice daytime running lights around the main beams here, some running lights down here as well. And there's a lot of 600 badges. So there's one on the front over there, there's one here on the side, there's one on each wheel, there's one down here on the sill as well. It's on the seats, it's on the back, it's on the bumper, it's everywhere. So you never forget that you're driving the Fiat 600, so that's maybe a good thing. The car is 4.17 meters long, so standing in front of it you can see that it's not a big car. Obviously it shares its size and dimensions roughly with those other cars that I just mentioned because the platform is what it is. 1.80 meters wide and about 1.60 high almost. So, you know, not a huge car by any means, and certainly not a car that you're going to take on the family holiday. But certainly a lot more usable as well as the Fiat 500. There's a lot more space on the interior as we'll see in a bit. And also the dimensions are just nice. The proportions are correct. And it's a car that offers a lot of options in terms of what you do with it and how you deploy it. Because this car will fit 1 or 2 children for the school run. It fits all your gear for the sports weekend. You can even take it for a weekend away with some part of the family in any kind of form. So, you know, it's very practical and very usable. And with 4.17 meters, you can also park it anywhere. And you don't really have to worry about maneuvering either. So that's nice. More badges here. We got a 600 in the bumper. We got a 600 in the tail light. And we have the E badge here because this is the electric version. There's also a hybrid version available, but this E version has a 51 kilowatt-hour battery and a theoretical range of around 400 kilometers. So that is actually quite nice. A few design cues here on the back with these tail lights that are quite nice and the big Fiat logo in the middle. Also a rear wiper, which is nice. No nonsense with our window is hot enough and it all flow off when you start driving. That doesn't work in the real world. A wiper is what you want. Opening up the boot right away as well while we're back here. 360 liters of boot capacity. I left my backpack in there and the charging cable for scale. Nothing too big. Like I said, this is not the car you're going to take on the family holiday, but this will easily take all your tennis rackets, swimming gear and anything else. So that's nice. There's a double floor in here for a little bit of extra space. And if you put the seats down, you can actually go to IKEA if you want to, because the opening is nice and large. So that is actually quite practical if you want it to be. While we're back here, let's have a look at the charging options. The charge port is here on the left-hand side. 51 kilowatt-hour battery, like I said, and you can charge 11 kilowatts at home or public charging if you want to. And there's a fast charging option for 100 kilowatts. Not groundbreaking, a little bit on the low end if you ask me, but with a 51 kilowatt-hour battery, considering you'll never be completely empty, you can get an idea about charging times that way as well. All around, I think it's okay, but nothing really more than that. And you would almost say that if Stellantis is using this platform for all those cars, you know, they can spread the development cost over so many brands and models. Why not put a little bit more effort in here and make the charging a little bit more? If it would be 150, it would already make such a difference. I think that would have been a nice addition. Inside the Fiat 600, there is again a lot of Stellantis DNA. So the steering wheel, the infotainment screen, the Klima unit, the gear selector is all very recognizable. Again, I don't think that's an issue. If you want to produce cars at scale, that is something that you're going to have to do. And just like the outside, there are some nice Fiat touches in here. It's a bit of a mix of things that are nice and not so nice. For example, the seats are very comfortable. They're very soft, especially the headrest is nice and comfortable. But things like the plastics here are rock hard. So it's a bit of a mixed bag here and there. But I'll take you around the cockpit. We start with some traditional mirror and window controls where they belong, so that is excellent. And the touch points here where you put your elbow are also nice and soft with this ivory white fake leather. Steering wheel, classic Stellantis. This is the same steering wheel as in the Jeep Avenger. So we got your systems and your volume and everything on the right, cruise control on the left. Normal stalks behind the steering wheel as well. And through the steering wheel, I have my driver's display. That is another disappointment because it looks sort of organic here in this circular shape, but inside there's just a square. And there's some warning lights on the side as well. So it doesn't look nice, especially when the sun hits it at a certain angle. It looks very sort of almost aftermarket cheap. You're like, come on, you guys could have done a little bit better. The display itself is fine. All your basic information is on there, and you can, of course, change a few things, so you will. So it's very functional, and the same goes for the display here in the middle. It's a bit of a sort of floating iPad design. I think it looks kind of nice if it wasn't for these relatively big black borders around it. But the screen itself is fine. All your information, navigation, radio, climate controls and everything is on there. So that is all fine. Below the screen, we got some shortcut buttons for the screen, so especially home and car. So car is mapped to your ADAS system, so your lane departure, your speed warning, your traffic sign recognition and so on. So it's actually quite nice that you can go there immediately and turn them off, so you will. Because every time you start the car, obviously they're reset to the automatic on setting. Below that, we have the climate unit the way it is supposed to be. Real buttons, up and down, with lights on them. This is how you want it to be. I've said it in earlier videos as well. All those capacitive systems are great, but you have to take your eyes off the road 3 times in order to do something. Because you can't feel the buttons, so you have to see where you're pressing. And then you have to wait until your action actually registers and check that. It's too complicated. It takes too much time. This you can feel, and the buttons go up and down. And it's just simple to turn your volume or your fan speed or your temperature up and down that way. And you know the action is registered because you know you press the button. It's just nicer, and it is easier, and you don't have to take your eyes off the road for that. Underneath, there's a little shelf for your phone in my case. This is not the wireless charging pad, by the way, but you can put your phone there if you want to. And there is a wireless charging pad down here. There is a cover for this, but it has been missing from this car. So imagine an iPad Folio style thing here to cover this up if you want to. Down there, your wireless charging, we got 2 USBs and a 12-volt socket right here. And you already seen the gear selector up here as well. So PR and DMB, just how you expect it to be. You have to retrain your brain a little bit that the buttons are there instead of here in the middle or behind the steering wheel. But it frees up space here, and this is sort of elegant solution once you get your brain to remember that the buttons are over there. But it's actually okay when you're maneuvering like this to just touch the buttons. It is actually fine. The middle tunnel, we have our drive select mode with Eco, Normal and Sport with 156 horsepower in this car, and your handbrake. And over here we have some cup holders that fit your bottles, and you can actually get the separators out to make more or less space, so that is handy. And we have an armrest here that can also open up with a little bin for a small bottle, for example. No issues whatsoever. All around, it's pretty okay in here. I quite like the fact that the roof is light and the seats are light as well. That sort of livens up the whole interior. And we also have this large whitish panel in front of us. So all around, that gives a lot of extra air in the cabin. I have a normal mirror to look rearwards, which is fine because the car is not that long. And also because the rear window is basically where the car ends, it's easy to judge distance in the rear view mirror as well. So that's cool. And apart from a few, too hard materials, it's actually quite okay in here. Those materials, I understand why they're there. Obviously, it's cost saving. And I do understand why they would be further down. And that's not a real issue because, with your legs, it's fine. And the touch points are fine too, but it is a bit hard here and there. But all around, it's a fine cabin to be for a little while. All right, driving this Fiat e600 in a residential area at the moment, which is exactly where this car feels at home. Some rougher roads, some cobblestones, some speed bumps. This is the environment where this car, I would almost say, feels at home, because it deals with this kind of circumstances really well. It's a soft car, so the suspension is soft, the steering is very soft and light. So this is really where this car shines. And in many ways it makes sense because this car is typically the kind of car that you buy as a second car. So, driving kids around to various activities, play dates, sports games and so on, you'll be driving on these kind of roads quite a lot. And this car is very suitable for that. The other thing that's really suitable is the drivetrain with 156 horsepower from this electric drivetrain. It is by no means a fast car or a sports car or anything, but it is nice and zippy in town. Obviously this size car lends itself well for city driving, and that electric punch, that quick acceleration to catch a traffic light, to cross an intersection and so on, that's really what this car feels happy doing. So that's great. Once you take it on bigger roads, you know, in and around town, it's fine. But once you take it on the highway, it's not an issue per se. It all goes well, certainly in Dutch traffic. But you start to notice things like the wind noise picks up a little bit, especially up here and around the mirror. And it's, yeah, with 156 horsepower, it's by no means any kind of fast car, even for Dutch standards. So that feels a lot less like the natural habitat for this car. Speed bumps like that, you know, it's a pretty rough bump, but this car deals with it quite nicely. And that's actually quite interesting, considering that this car shares its platform and its base with all the other cars that I mentioned before. So I've driven most of those cars, like the Mokka recently, I've driven the Avenger, the Alfa Junior, and they all have some own characteristics, especially in the driving experience. And I think Fiat has put its DNA in that small tweaking of the suspension, making it lighter, making it softer, and making the steering light. And I think that is what Fiat is trying to accomplish here. Here in the back of the Fiat 600, we obviously got to test if that 4.17 m has been put to good use. And there is a lot of good news back here, because I, with my 1.83 m and 90 kilos, fit behind myself. So that's quite the accomplishment for a car this size. You can see I also have plenty of headroom left, so that is excellent. And even for people taller than me, the seats are soft in the back, so no hard plastic covers here. So even when you touch the seats, like I do, it doesn't become uncomfortable. So all round, that is an excellent start. What's not so good is the fact, you can see it on the side, is the fact that there's quite a hump here in the floor underneath the seats. So if you want to put your feet under the seat, you can't, because this hump is here, even when the seats are further up. So that is not ideal for comfort back here, that you're always limited to this space with your feet. And even if you want to move your feet around, this transmission tunnel here in the middle is also quite significant. And the central tunnel goes too far rearward, so I can't move my foot in one motion. I always have to sort of bend it and almost break it in order to go to the other side. So that is not ideal. Something else that's not ideal is the hard plastics here. I mentioned them in the front already. But at least you have some softer touch points there. Here, it's all rock hard plastic. So that is certainly not ideal if you want to be comfortable here for a slightly longer journey. Good thing is that the seats are very comfortable. We have the same kind of cool blue stitching as we have in the front, so that is nice. And they are comfortable to sit also for somebody my size. So that is all good. The driver's seat in front of me is not too massive, but the headrest is. So as an adult, you have to sort of try to look around a little bit. As a kid, it's not an issue, but it's also not ideal, because the windows are not that big. You need a lot of light from the front, and you have to get most of your light sort of from in between the seats. So it's fine-ish, but it is borderline. Luckily, with all this white and also the white roof, it feels airy enough back here. I think if all this would be black, it would get claustrophobic in a hurry. There is no central armrest, so this is all you're going to get, but it does allow you to sit here reasonably easily. And you can see that even somebody my size can fit here in the middle with some headroom left. Without too much issues. So also for a medium journey, I would be fine here, as long as the people here on the sides are not too broad-shouldered. Two final things. First of all, the ISOFIX is here with a little zipper pocket, so that is actually quite nice. No peanuts or anything rolling in here. There is quite a layer of foam in here though to find the actual attachment point for the ISOFIX, so that can be a bit of a fumble. But this is a nice and elegant solution, I think. What is not so elegant is the fact there is one USB here. Not really sure who sat in a meeting at Fiat and said, oh, USBs? Yeah, great idea. How many? Two? No, don't be crazy. Let's do one. Those kind of decisions baffle me. I don't understand why you want to put one USB charger here if there's clearly space for two children. Now to show you what 156 horsepower does, I've put it in sport mode and we have a little bit of straight roads. So from 0, we're going to go full throttle. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So nothing shocking, absolutely not, but very usable in and around town, like I said, and even getting on the highway is not that much of a problem. The driving modes, by the way, you're probably never going to touch them because there's simply not enough power to really use those properly. Maybe the sport mode gives you a bit of an earlier throttle response, but that is about it. So I don't think you'll use those much. What's nice is the power display on the driver's display, where you can see how much input you're giving it, and you can keep it in the eco zone or go to the power zone. You also can see your recharging going on. So that's actually quite useful if you want to be efficient with your drivetrain. In terms of the car concept in general, I think it is a good move from Stellantis to use the platform that they have also under the Fiat flag. So as far as that goes, it all works as you expect. The 100 kilowatt hour charging that I touched on outside, I wouldn't say it's a complete letdown, but it is, to modern standards, it could have been a little bit better. With 51 kilowatt hours of battery capacity and the fact that you'll most likely buy this as a second car, you're probably going to have charging options close to home. So it's probably not that much of an issue. I don't see many people road tripping in this kind of car. But it would have been nicer to have a little bit more capabilities in terms of the charging. The only thing I would complain about is the fact that the plastics here, it's a little bit of a letdown, especially since these seats, for example, are comfortable enough. Considering this car costs almost 40,000 euros, that is a bit of a question mark as far as I'm concerned. The hybrid already starts under 30,000 and this E version starts at 33. So there's a bit of a gap there, but I think if you go close to 40, this kind of stuff becomes maybe not acceptable anymore. All round though, it's a good place to be here in the cabin. Like I said, I don't mind the Stellantis interface because it all works reasonably well. And I think the car itself, I have a good view out. Maneuvering this car in parking structures and such is no issue whatsoever because it's not that big, and I can see out quite well. And also driving my own kids around, it's fine. My kids don't need car seats anymore, so there's plenty of space for them in the back. And even with car seats, there is also enough room to move about as long as you put the front seats forward slightly. After a whole week with this Fiat 600e, is this just another Stellantis clone? Well, in many ways, yes, of course, because the platform and most of the stuff inside is shared. But on the other hand, I think Fiat gives a nice own touch to this car with a fresh design, some cool things inside like the seats and the stitching and so on. So as far as that goes, I don't mind. I think Fiat has done a good job here. Certainly a lot more usable than the 500 with a lot more volume, especially on the inside. You get a slightly larger car, obviously, but I think this is a very usable size with just over 4 meters that you can still put anywhere without it becoming too cumbersome and still have a lot of space and usable interior volume. But I think if you do like the styling, then this 600 is a nice option with some Fiat touches, like I said, among which also that light steering and that supple suspension. That's all I got for you in this video. Thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. A sub to the channel is always appreciated, of course, then you don't miss any future videos. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!